I used to finish as a trainee lawyer, and then I would go in the evening to work in a supermarket pharmacy till about 11 o'clock at night. But I always knew it was the way forward.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Clinical Pharmacist podcast. For those of you that are joining us for the first time today, my name's Ruhina, and I'm the CEO of Clinical Pharmacist Solutions. As always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host and our COO, Sarah Dekmak. Today, we are continuing our series on entrepreneurship and alternative pharmacist career pathways, where we've spoken to a number of different pharmacists that have done something really unique and exciting along their way. So today we are joined by Thorrun Govind, a practicing pharmacist and a lawyer who supports healthcare professionals in navigating legal challenges. Thorrun has had a really unique and exciting career from her work across pharmacy and law and previously serving as the chair of the Royal College of Pharmacy, as well as being a familiar voice across national media. So she's also been recognized by the Legal 500 as recommended lawyer, and in 2026 she was awarded Lawyer of the Year, Health and Wellbeing Champion, and Chairman's Rising Star at the Made in Manchester Awards. Thorrun, it's such a pleasure to have you here with us today. To start with, could you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've combined pharmacy and law in your career?
Okay, thanks for having me. Well, first of all, I started off and I studied at King's, where I did my pharmacy degree. I then went into community pharmacy and did my pre-reg, as it was known then. Started working, and then I was doing my graduate diploma in law and then legal practice course alongside working as a pharmacist. And I still practice as a pharmacist, but I'm also now a practicing lawyer. So, as you said, they're supporting mainly pharmacists, but healthcare professionals. That could be with buying and selling a pharmacy, or it could be regulatory issues, so whether that's with the GPHC, or it could be because they're doing something new and innovative and they want some advice about where the legal boundaries are. And sometimes they want to know how to work in the grey areas.
Wow. So that's such a kind of exciting, different journey. At what point did you realize like the legal side of healthcare was very important and it was something that you wanted to kind of pursue more formally?
I mean, I've always been interested. In fact, when I was going to study at university, I had sort of been a little bit interested in the legal aspects. I'd always wanted to be a pharmacist, but I think pharmacy is evolving. We're seeing such change that I feel like there's just been so much change even in the last 2 years. And I also regularly speak in the media across the airways about what pharmacists actually do and how our role is evolving. So I think it's really, I've sort of made it my own. It's been quite a unique journey, but it's been really exciting and lots of opportunities, which I've really gone forward with as well.
Yeah, I think that's very exciting actually to be a voice for pharmacists across like national media as well. How did that journey start for you?
So I used to host a radio station on a Friday night. I used to host a show for a radio station when I was at school, and I was really interested in sort of media and broadcasting. And through that, I always wanted to talk about healthcare and how people could better look after their health. So self-care is really one of those aspects, because we need people to be thinking about that. And then also, what entry points to healthcare are there and who should people be seeing? And I think also, I don't think we're great at acknowledging how much we do as pharmacists. We're not very good at shouting about what we do. So that was really where it all started.
Okay, and
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah,
So I
no,
was just going to say, where was the pinpoint where you were like, I'm going to go and actually formally study law? And how did you find studying like a law degree alongside working as a pharmacist as well?
I mean, I put a lot of pressure on myself when I was studying pharmacy, and I actually found it quite enjoyable to study law because it's like I didn't have to do it. I wanted to do it. One of the first cases that we studied was actually it's called Boots Cash Chemist. So obviously Boots in its previous forms, and actually what counts as something being available for sale. So I think it's really interesting. There's actually, cases which people might not know about, but there's a lot of pharmacy links, I think, and anything pharmacy related is always of interest to me. I used to write for the trade magazines and still do in pharmacy. There's always aspects of regulation and legalities that come into everything we do. Recently, emergency supplies, I've been talking about that. That's the Human Medicines Regulations 2012. Everything we do in the pharmacy is really regulated, isn't it?
yeah, we come from one of the most regulated like kind of healthcare professional fields. So it's actually really exciting. When you were doing your law degree, were you actively working in the pharmacy at the same time? And how was that in terms of like time management for you? Because law is a very difficult degree in itself.
Well, so it's a full-time course, but I treated
Yeah.
it more like part-time, if I'm honest. And obviously,
Mhm.
was still working to fund the degree element. So then the graduate diploma in law and then the legal practice course. And then you have to go and work 2 years in a law firm as well. So I was still working as a pharmacist. I used to finish being my trainee as a lawyer, so trainee lawyer, and then I'd finish that, and then I would go in the evening and go to work in a supermarket pharmacy till like about 11 o'clock at night, and then I go
Wow.
home again. So it's not been without its challenges,
Yep.
but I always knew it was the way forward.
Yeah, and I think that itself, it takes a lot of resilience to kind of go ahead and do a full-time law degree, be working in the evenings, getting your coursework, getting your like assessments and everything done. And I think if there was a bit of advice you could give to pharmacists that are wanting to do another course, whether it's law, whether it's something else, what would you kind of advise them on the challenges and kind of the time management and kind of handling everything that you've done along the way?
I think you've just got to be prepared to make sacrifices. And obviously, for some people, you will be weighing up where you are in your life and what's most important to you. But right then at that point, it was something that really interested me. So it didn't really feel like working when I was doing that studying, to be honest. Like I say, I found the pharmacy degree really hard. Mainly, I think that's when you go to university that first time and you're 18 and you've left home and you've gone somewhere completely new. I think there's a whole load of challenges that come with that. Whereas I felt a bit more settled. I was doing my work as a pharmacist, I knew what I was doing, and the studying sort of was to fill my free time, to be honest. So I quite enjoyed it, but it's not for everyone. I think you have to be prepared that for some late nights and early mornings, and I'm very used to that now.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. It sounds like it's been quite a journey. And in terms of, I just want to jump back to you said that you were working as part of a radio station, giving advice, discussing self-care, and that kind of led to you becoming kind of national voice for pharmacists on national media. How did that kind of bridge the gap? Like, what happened in between to cause that for you?
I mean, I think I'm quite persistent. I'm always looking for I'm always thinking about what's going on right now in
Mhm.
pharmacy and actually some of the challenges that we have. And I've always been quite open about those challenges and talked about them quite publicly. I haven't been afraid to challenge the profession as well when I think there's other ways that we could be doing things. I think we can't be saying that we're struggling for funding, but then also doing lots of things for free, unfortunately.
Mhm.
There has to come a point as well where we are making sure that we are logging and documenting and making people are aware of the value that we provide. So there's like two instances of where I know pharmacists have provided emergency adrenaline. Someone's coming off the street and they needed care urgently. And it's about, I think, publicizing those really fantastic interactions where people have made such a difference to people's lives. But as a profession, we haven't been that great about telling people. So that's what's key for me.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant actually to be an advocate and a voice to actually show what's going on. As you said, there's so many things that pharmacists are doing on a daily basis, regardless of what sector that they're in, but it often goes unrecognized. And that's because we're not always good at talking about the work that we do. So it's really brilliant that you're able to do that on behalf of a lot of pharmacists out there. So, in terms of, we mentioned like there can be challenges along the way when, especially going from like a pharmacy degree to a law degree, working like full time at the same time. What are some key or some challenges that you've experienced along your journey?
Think and obviously when I was chair of the Royal College of Pharmacy, obviously I was quite young. I'd only just been qualified a couple of years, about 2 years when I first joined. So I think there's a lot of challenges being a female healthcare professional who's quite young, quite spirited, quite willing to challenge the status quo. And I think that does come with a lot of challenges, which I don't always think are talked about. I think people don't always recognize the time that you put in for things. So people might say, oh, I've seen you here, there, and everywhere. But it's like my work still gets done. I'm still dealing with clients. My focus is always on the client in front of me, whether that's a patient or a legal client. And you've got to get used to being able to work long hours. But I think for me, it's that variety that keeps me going. So I love that sort of going out to meet people and events and connecting with pharmacy professionals. But also, I actually like doing the patient facing work, and Pharmacy First obviously has really supported the profession in terms of being able to provide more. But it's going to be interesting to see how that develops.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said that you're still kind of practicing as a pharmacist as well. How often are you kind of working in a pharmacy?
Well, I'm pretty busy in the pharmacy, to be honest.
Yeah.
At the weekend, I was emergency contraception, acute sore throat. It's getting much busier, which is
Yeah.
a challenge, I think, for all pharmacists. So I think to me, it's like an absolute privilege to be able to have that role to practice as a pharmacist. But it is getting so busy, and people are also expecting to come into the pharmacy and be treated for things that they should probably be going to A&E for. So
Yep.
I think there's a lot more that we need to do as a profession in terms of, again, patient education.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think it's actually quite exciting because to have you here and speaking to us today, because I think along this series, we've had a number of different pharmacists that have gone off and they might be doing things outside of the sector. So it's quite exciting for us because you are still working within the sector, you're still balancing law and you're still balancing pharmacy together and actually helping to support pharmacists that are within the sector with some, it's actually really niche to have that kind of skill set to be able to support pharmacists because who better understands what the
Hmm.
pharmacist's legal queries are than the pharmacists themselves. From your experience, what's the common kind of legal mistake or kind of legal concern that you may have pharmacists coming to get advice to you about?
I think one of my biggest concerns is that sometimes you'll get a legal letter and you'll just brush it under the carpet, or
Mm,
you'll just forget about it. You'll think, I'll deal with that later. And it's not going away. It's probably just going to get worse. So, one of the first things I say to people is make sure you've contacted your indemnity provider if you're getting a legal letter. And then obviously speak to a solicitor that your indemnity provider may also provide support as well. But I think, it's clients sometimes can bury their head in the sand because they don't want to deal with it. And then it just becomes a bigger issue. Obviously, out there at the moment, in terms of regulatory issues, I was on Good Morning Britain a few weeks ago talking about patients, so the general public being able to access prescription only medicines on social media platforms.
Hmm.
So to me, there's a big sort of education point when to the public about where they should be accessing medication from regulated sources. In terms of some of the pharmacies that we support, in terms of buying and selling pharmacies, it is an interesting time in the sales market. It's really busy actually as well. So despite all the doom and gloom out, there are plenty of transactions happening.
yeah. And would you say, are there any specific types of cases or situations that you like see repeatedly, or if there's any kind of specific scenarios that pharmacists could learn from in particular?
I think I deal with such a variety of issues from corporate work to regulatory work. I think it's just such variety for me that probably can't give you an example of something specific that I keep seeing, but everything, as I say, is that people sometimes bury their heads or they just don't deal with things when at an early point and then they escalate and it gets worse. And I also think people, you can just tend to worry as well. You're just worrying on your own. I always think problem shared is a problem halved. So if you've got that legal support, I don't just provide legal advice. I, provide, I would say, a bit of counseling as well. And
Yeah.
also people are also growing businesses, which I'm really keen to support as well, like innovative businesses who are really looking to change the status quo, which I love. And I love that I get to support them. So knowing what the guidance is, what the sort of boundaries, what the risks and benefits for going forward is also really interesting to me.
Yeah. And have you seen are there any kind of practical steps that you think that pharmacists should be taking a little bit better to kind of protect themselves professionally, both in non-clinical and the non-clinical exciting roles that are happening as well?
I think obviously look at what your indemnity insurance provides. I think I always say, whoever you are, documentation's really key. I think sometimes we're in a rush to get things done that we don't always, especially when you're in the pharmacy, it's like on to the next patient, on to the next patient. Sometimes you just
Mhm.
need to step back a little bit and think about the environment that you're operating in and not being afraid to say, I'm a yes person, but I'm also not afraid to say I need to think about this. You don't need to rush into anything, especially if you're doing something innovative and new. I think having professional advisors around you is really important, whether that's a solicitor or an accountant, or having that sort of network of resource that you can just get a bit of a sense check is really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of moving back towards you and your background, how would you feel like that pharmacy background and that pharmacy degree has helped you in your legal career? Are there any skills that pharmacists might underestimate when moving into something like the law?
I think what I find really strange actually is like a community pharmacy is a very fast paced, busy environment where you are looking at probably a few key points of data when you're looking at a prescription, but it has to absolutely be right. Whereas when you're looking at a legal environment, I can close the door and be on my own and focus on something for potentially hours at end, but it's a longer document perhaps. There can be a lot of nuance in it as well. So I think it's almost like I've got two halves of my brain working, which is why I like the variety.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered sort of other pharmacy sectors, or have you done any other pharmacy sectors, or is it just community that you've sort of focused on?
I've worked with industry clients, whether in different capacities, talking a lot about the role of the pharmacist. I think we need to make sure that pharma understand what pharmacists do because it can feel quite disconnected. So I've done that in the past. Um, I I think in terms of healthcare generally, though, I don't think we should be just thinking about pharmacy in a silo. So when I was chair of the Royal College of Pharmacy, I was really keen to connect with other industries in that role. So hosting a roundtable with the Royal College of GPs. I don't think we can just think in our pharmacy silo or even that sector silo. You've got to sort of get out and be a bit wider as to what's going on sort of nationally as well when it comes to healthcare.
Perfect. Thorrun, if there were any kind of pharmacists that were looking to do something a little bit different, looking to do a different kind of degree or a pathway, what advice would you give them?
I think the pharmacy degree is a really stable background, which gives you lots of options and skills for many different areas. That sort of analytical detail to the ability to advise, to weigh up options, I think that's really powerful. So I think you've got a really strong baseline to go into different fields. And I also think even in the legal sector now, so I am a member of the junior lawyers division and we support junior lawyers. And it's really well sought after, but the legal firms are looking for people who haven't qualified in law. They want people who've been out there, lived a life, got some experience of other, of not just the law. So I think it's really powerful, actually.
Yeah, actually, that's really interesting. And I think coming from a pharmacy background, there's a lot that you can bring, a lot of different kind of transferable skills that you have. I think sometimes when we speak to patients, we've got a softer approach. Do we know how to explain things? We're able to put things in a person or a patient-centric way. So I think that there's lots of skills that you can transfer over there. In terms of, we've had this conversation across this series actually, in terms of mentorship, in terms of support systems, support networks, have you found that there are any like key people, any key influences, anyone that has kind of helped to drive you or any kind of networks that have helped to kind of drive you to get to where you are today? I think we all have days where we're like, oh, okay, what's next? And it's always kind of mentorship and the people that we have around us. Is there anyone that's kind of helped to motivate you in that way? Any support networks?
I think I'm really lucky that I've come across people not in a sort of formal capacity, but you've got these people who you can just go to and you know that they're a good sounding board for you. And I think you've got to get to know people and recognize that, they're a trusted sort of place for you. And I think that's what I would advise people to do really. I think I've got some key people who I know I can go to and they're not afraid to say, actually, no, that's a good idea or that's a bad idea. And you don't want yes people around you either.
Great. I think it's really important to have that kind of brutal
honest.
honesty. And sometimes whether you want to hear it or not, but it definitely does make a big difference. Perfect. Thorrun, before we wrap up, if there's any pharmacists that want to kind of reach out to you, where they can get you.
So if you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Thorrun Govind. I'm also, if you're looking for legal advice and legal support, at Brabner's. So yeah, always happy to speak to people.
Brilliant. So, Thorrun, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights. I think you've had an incredible journey. It's really great to see that actually you're still so well connected within the pharmacy sector. You're working actively in pharmacies as well as being a lawyer. And I feel like it really keeps you grounded and you are able to understand the sector better than anyone else that anyone will probably go to legal advice for. I think it's been such an important conversation. I think it really highlights how understanding the legal side of pharmacy isn't just relevant for a few people, but it is actually something that impacts us all in practice. I think there's so many new and innovative kind of sectors of pharmacy that are coming about. So I think it's really important to be able to get advice from someone that actually has knowledge of the whole area. And thank you to everyone that's listening. We hope this episode has given you a little bit more awareness and confidence when it comes to navigating something new or any advice that you may have wanted to have previously, but not been able to have the right person to get it from. So, as always, no gatekeeping, just honest conversations. And we will see you in the next episode of the Clinical Pharmacist podcast.
Thank you.